So good morning, everybody, and welcome to the BIA Downtown Parking presentation today, September 25th. I will just like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we're gathering for this meeting is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe peoples, many of whom continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the land protected by the Dish with One Spoon, One Palm Agreement. Today, this gathering place is home to many First Nation, Métis, and Inuit peoples, and acknowledging this reminds us that our great standard of living is directly related to the resources and friendship of Indigenous people. Thank you all for joining us. My name's Rachel and I'm the Executive Director for the St Catharines Downtown Association. I would just like to acknowledge that we have a number of city staff that are joining us on the call today, and I appreciate their time. So Kathryn, Hannah, who you will hear from during the presentation, and Lisa Reed, who are both revenue managers with the City of St Catharines, along with Tara, who's the new parking supervisor. Welcome, Tara. Brian Appleby, Steve Bittner, and Samir Isika. So thank you all so much for joining us. I'm hoping I didn't say your last names too bad, Tara. I apologize for not trying your last name. I should have got the pronunciation from you first.
That's no problem at all. It's Bourbonnais.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So Kathryn, without much ado, is it okay if I pass along the presentation to you?
Sure.
Thank you.
Great. Good morning. We are pleased to present an overview of the city's downtown parking solutions. So we will start with the city's owned off-street parking facilities. So the city has a dozen off-street parking lots and a couple of garages to meet the needs of shoppers, downtown employees, and special events through approximately 1,900 spaces. There are also approximately 1,000 spaces available through off-street private parking lots. We have detailed on this slide some of the current rates for the garages and some of the street lots. So next we go to our garage facilities. So the Ontario Street Garage is limited to permit users only throughout the weekday and has approximately 480 spaces available. It is also used for special events on the weekend and at night. The Carlisle Street Garage has approximately 550 spaces above ground and 85 spaces below ground. This facility is also used for special events, weeknights, and during the weekend. So in both of those garages, you can apply for monthly parking permits through the city's parking services and Citizens First, but due to the demand for parking in the downtown core, permits are issued on a first-come, first-served basis, and we do have a waiting list onto which to put your names. And next is on-street parking. So the city's on-street parking has approximate average utilization of 55% throughout the week, 61% on the weekends, and 88% for special events. So there's approximately 1,000 on-street metered spaces available to shoppers and others coming to visit downtown. We do have free curbside parking at specified spaces in the core where there's 15-minute parking to jump in, grab your takeout, your pickup order. In general, the parking meter rate is about $1.75 per hour for 2023. There's a 3-hour maximum daily parking limit during office hours, Monday to Friday, 9 to 6 p.m. And the metered parking is free outside those hours, including weekends. Parking is prohibited, though, overnight between 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. And payment options. So the city does have a variety of payment methods for on-street parking. There's pay and display machines, the Honk mobile app, and there are a few coin meter machines still in use throughout the city. So bagging of meters, the city does offer the use of specific on-street parking spots through meter bagging for a daily fee. If a business would like to retain a spot for specific use on a specific date, please contact the city parking services to purchase the bags. We will install and remove the bags as requested. And loading zones. So the available downtown loading zones are shown on the map as red dots and aim to provide access for delivery services. There are 20 loading zones within the downtown area, and those are primarily used by commercial vehicles to temporarily park to load and unload freight or merchandise, in which parking should not exceed a period of 30 minutes. And special events parking. So the city has parking garages and a number of parking lots available for special events run by the major facilities downtown. Not every event downtown requires special event parking, as the decision to offer special event parking is determined by the demand on parking resources. So a smaller event wouldn't warrant the need for special events parking, but a large event or hockey game would require special events. So the fees are set between $5 to $10 depending on the lot, and it can be increased up to $20 as per council bylaw. And there are a number of private lots also available throughout the downtown core, which charge their own range of fees for special events. We have listed the normal lots that are used during special events for your members, so that they can also let patrons know what is available. And, our last topic is winter parking, as we are getting close to the winter season. So to aid with winter snow removal, the city has the snow parking bans in place during the winter months. So typically, based on forecasted weather and local observation, a temporary ban of on-street parking is brought into place to help city staff remove snow from the roads. So you'll see in the map to the right, the areas in red are where the specific snow ban parkings may be put in place, including the downtown core. The city does try to be quite proactive about communicating when snow parking bans are in place through social media, the city's website, MySTC, and then local news outlets. And if there is any concern regarding when those are being held, patrons and business owners can call into the city for more information. So that concludes our presentation. So if there are any questions.
Thank you, Kathryn. A number of our members actually who registered did submit questions. So if it's okay for me to kind of ask those on their behalf, that would be great. So the first one is just with regards to loading zone parking and enforcement. In terms of, I noticed on the slide that you had for that showed some different numbers, like 6 minutes, 20 minutes, those kind of items. And I was just wondering if that was indicative that certain loading zones have different time limits, and also how it's enforced. Like, how do they know that a car's only been there for 20 minutes per se?
So normally when we do have timed parking spots, an enforcement officer will stem the vehicle. So they will take note of where the stem sits. And after the required time, they will come back. If the stem haven't moved, that's when they would issue the ticket for being above time. So that's in terms of parking enforcement, how the enforcement officers would know whether or not a vehicle had moved from the location and whether or not they had exceeded the time limit of that particular spot.
Perfect. Thank you. And then forgive me, the red dots, there's like, for example, 17M, 6M. Is that just a code to identify the loading zone, or is that the time limit on those loading zones?
I do believe that's the actual space for the loading zone. So 6 meters, 17 meters, 18 meters. So it gives you the size of the particular loading zone. Some are a little bit bigger than others.
That makes complete sense. Perfect. And just forgive me, another quick question on this one was just if someone is found to be in the loading zone longer than 20 minutes, or sorry, the 30 minutes it's allowed, is the ticket the same as just a parking ticket?
It would be issued under the AMPS, so our administrative monetary penalties. So it would be similar to a parking ticket. It would just be the infraction that's different from, say, being over limit at a parking meter.
Thank you. That makes sense. And then another question that was asked recently, and I think this is kind of coming about because people have seen the installation of some of the new kiosks, which has been good and well received. One question was just how long before all of the meters are phased out?
All of the coin meters? Are those the particular types of meters?
Yeah.
I actually, Brian, do you happen to know what the plan is for the last coin parking meters?
Yeah, I can jump in. Thanks, Kathryn. So at this point, we are in the final phase of replacing a good portion of the coin meters. So there have been several new pay and display machines installed around the downtown, on Queen, on Duke, on James, and Church, and on Lake Street. There's the ones on Lake and Duke have not yet been put into place because of some construction that's occurring over there in that area. They will be put in after. That will remove another good chunk of the coin operated machines. Right now, there's kind of they're dual operating out there right now. The last of the coin machines, there is no specific timeline to remove those. Originally, we had the potential to replace them with other similar machines that could accept credit. However, through our project, the rules around the acceptance of credit cards in those machines changed, and so we had to abandon the plan to replace all of them. So we will be left with some. However, because we've been removing a lot of them off the street, we have a lot of leftover ones, so we have a lot of spare parts. So we feel like we'll be able to keep them in operation for the foreseeable future. There has been some discussion about replacing them with different methodologies. So potentially replacing some of the leftover ones, which tend to be on the fringes of the downtown paid system, potentially with honk mobile only, or potentially replacing some of them with parking permits is another, or potentially, depending on where they are, removing them from the paid system altogether. So those are the things that we'll be looking at in the next in the coming months to look at, see how to best deal with those. But at this point, no specific timeline. But it is we do have that in mind to continue down the path of replacing all of the coin meters at some point in the future.
Perfect. Thank you, Brian. And then we did have a question that was submitted by one of our businesses that they're new to the kiosk system, and unfortunately one of the kiosks was quite close to their business, and now they've got a lot of people coming in asking for change. Is there any outreach with regards to, when systems are updated, to get feedback on, can we put a kiosk here, or what kind of system you'd like? Or and if there isn't a kind of outreach or communication on that, could that be a possibility, even if it's funneled through St Catharines Downtown Association, perhaps?
Yeah, absolutely. So originally, the downtown parking study that was completed, and we did have some outreach at the time, and this is going back a number of years now, had included the plan to convert to pay and display across several parts. And that time it also had the other option of using some of the single space meters as they were, and again, accepting credit. And of course that changed. So we ended up having the decision to transfer most of the machines over to pay and display. There was some direction that we received to do that, and it ultimately was sort of the only available option that we had to move forward with. The exact locations in the field and where they are, no, we didn't have any specific discussions with businesses at the time, because we were relocating them in areas where there was sufficient space to safely stand, space to access the meters themselves. We have to make sure that they're not sitting under a tree or something, because they need sun to keep the batteries charged. And they can only, there's some sort of general guidance as to how many spaces and how far anyone should have to walk to get to one. So there were several constraints that we had, and all of those things went into locating them in the field. That being said, if there is a specific concern with a machine, by all means, if they can submit that through you, Rachel, we could absolutely review that in the field, and there may be opportunity to relocate it. It's not a difficult thing to relocate, again, assuming that we can meet some of those other challenges. As far as people coming in and looking for change, we know that's been a concern before. Unfortunately, we don't have a really good answer for that. Although what we're finding is that more and more people are using either credit or the honk system, which doesn't require a payment with cash or with coin. So hopefully, as we transition, that will become less and less of an issue moving forward, at least for the time being. But again, if there's any specific concerns with any of the machines, if you can let us know, we'd absolutely be willing to go out and have a look, and we can discuss that further at that time.
Amazing. I appreciate that, Brian. Thank you. And just one other quick question. Sorry, just wondering if there's been any a plan for communication or promotion with regards to parking in the downtown area.
Kathryn, I'm not sure that's something that your section typically deals with. I don't.
Would you mind repeating the question?
Yes, and my apologies. I know I'm throwing a few random ones here at you. So it was just if there was a plan for communication or marketing for parking in the downtown area specifically. It's just we get a lot of feedback from members, visitors, patrons, community groups, always about parking and parking being an issue. But from your presentation, it clearly doesn't seem that the amount of parking is the issue. I think it's more a case of knowing where to go for the parking. And I just didn't know if there was a plan to help communicate or market so that people know better where to go for the parking.
So the city does have the downtown parking on a specific website. We do have wayfinding signage throughout the downtown core. If that's not sufficient, actually, I wouldn't mind if you forwarded along some of the specific concerns where people are finding they're not getting this information, because we can definitely look at updating the methods in which we're communicating where parking is available and when. So if you do have that, send that along, but do note that it is on the city website under downtown parking, and there are the wayfinding signs specifically. There's Market Square at the end of St. Paul I can think of, but we can definitely provide access to that information as well. And I'm wondering if there is something specific that maybe we could send out to the BIA businesses. So I'll mark that down and we'll follow up on that.
Yeah, sounds good. We can definitely touch base and connect. And I was also thinking, when Brian, you were talking about how people come in and ask for change, that, there's other options. Maybe it's just the creation of a little sticker that could go on their counter or flyer that talks about the other options of how to pay without change, so to speak, that could provide some more support to those businesses. So I will reach out to you after the the presentation. So thank you so much for that. The one other question that we did have submitted was about event parking, and just with regards to notification and how our businesses can find out when event parking will be in place so that they can plan for their staff accordingly.
So generally for the larger events, we would know ahead of time whether or not there would be. So typically with the Ice Dogs game, there would be special events or any of the major concerts downtown. We would have those. Sometimes we don't know necessarily if special events parking is going to be available until closer to the event, depending on the number of attendees to the event. So I know this is something we had talked about previously, so maybe we can take that back and look to find ways to communicate that. And would you mind also asking your members what their preferred method of communication would be? Would it be an email blast? Would it be posting on the website? Because then we can provide the information in the method that works best for everyone. So we can both kind of take this back and do a little research so that we hit the mark on it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a great idea to find out what the best method is too, because I find, you know, it's hard to hit everyone right with one method. So we can definitely, and we'd love to support with that too. You know, we have most of the emails for our members, so we can help get that information out to them as well, for sure. But thank you. I appreciate that. I think that was most of the questions that were submitted. I do want to just highlight from your presentation, Kathryn, that and remind everybody that on-street parking is the same price as parking in our high-rise garages, which I think is one point that's often people don't realize, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
And
Perfect.
if I could just add a couple of just small points to that. And I'll circle back to your loading zone. So the loading zone violation is actually a $48 violation as opposed to a prohib at 30 and an over the time limit or expired meter at 20. So it is, you know, double the amount of money. And I think another one of the concerns your membership has with regards to the loading zone, the city does have a policy for non-commercial because a lot of times we have, you know, just passenger vehicles unloading and loading in those spaces. And so we do, for the purpose of that type of activity, as long as they're actively engaged in unloading and like, you know, you can see their four-way flashers, their trunk would be open or their back hatch would be up, as long as there's a sign in the window that says 8.5 by 11 laminated to say we're on delivery, then we would provide them 10 to 15 minute consideration while they're doing that. The same officers would still stem the vehicles to make sure that they're not exceeding that time limit. If there is no sign present, then they still provide them with a 5-minute grace period. So the bylaw itself speaks specifically to commercial, but we do internally have a policy for passenger vehicles who are, you know, for your membership who actually are loading with their own personal vehicles. So that is available to them. And the other thing that I wanted to kind of share that we didn't share there, our rates and fees was passed for 2024. So the actual hourly meter price is going from $1.75 to $2 starting January 1st.
Thank you, Lisa. That's good to how will that be communicated?
Well, they just recently got passed, so we're just working through all of our stuff. So yeah, that'll have to go out specifically as a communication piece to, you know, especially to the downtown core, and you know that is definitely coming January 1st. All the meters will be reprogrammed to this price. But yeah, we'll have to get something out. But wanted to share that with you now. At least it gives you, you know, a few more months rather than, you know, January 1st to know that the prices will be increasing to $2.
Perfect. And just to confirm, that's citywide?
That's citywide, yes.
Perfect. Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate that. Good to have the heads up for sure. I know our members like to be in the loop with what's going on. And that's, so again, just to clarify, $1.75 going up to $2 for parking as of January 1st. And that's for all parking, not just on street meters, correct?
That's for all parking, yeah. So everything, even in the garage for hourly parking, it's going to move the same way to $2 an hour. So we haven't, again, like you had mentioned, all parking is the same price right across the city, with the exception of the beach parking, which doesn't affect the downtown core. The beach parking is, you know, during the special provision or during the May through to September, that parking is $3 an hour.
Perfect. I appreciate that. Thank you for the heads up. Well, that was all my questions that were submitted by members. So thank you again to the members who submitted them, and also to city staff who have been very kind to address all the questions that were submitted. I'm going to stop recording, but thank everybody for their time today.